welcome to Thursday Reviews. Today we have a Pittsburgh digital caliper to review. It comes in a case like this. You can see it's pretty well packaged. It comes with a manual, a spare battery, and of course the caliper itself, which comes with the battery pre-installed. This is a 6-inch or 150mm caliper. This door leads you to the battery, which should be good straight from the box. But don't try and open it. You'll never be able to close it. Not without a lot of luck. But it takes a single LR44 battery. The 3 buttons are power, 0, and a units button. This toggles between millimeters, inches, and fractions. For anyone who's never used one of these, this wheel opens and closes the jaws. The knob back here tightens it to where you can't open or close them. It works as you'd expect. Something I will never understand about these things is that the power button is rather pointless. It's not just on this thing. Many digital calipers do this. It powers on even when just opening the jaws. So if it accidentally opens in the box, it drains the battery and you're not even using it. It does have an auto power off feature, but I don't understand why that power on thing needs to exist in the first place. Whatever, it's the only thing I don't really like, and it's not that big of a deal. Let's just measure stuff already. So I've got a bunch of random stuff here that we're going to measure with the digital caliper here. So I'm going to be measuring the dimensions of one of my wood blocks. I will measure and tell you the science behind the numbering of the 18650 batteries that I reviewed on my Olight S2R. And I also am not going to be measuring the screwdriver itself, but I will measure a screw that I've taken out of my box fan that I reviewed all the way back on episode 6, a really long time ago. I'm going to be using that box fan and the screwdriver from episode 4. And I will measure and confirm the thickness in inches on this, wherever they wrote it. We'll get to that when we need to. Trying to not lose the screw, so I'm just kind of putting it on the end here. First, let's start with this wood block. So let's start with the width. We know it's a square, so it should be the same on both. Let's start by making sure that everything is zeroed. Let's start on millimeters. Okay, I will measure. We'll open this up. Squeeze this in here, and okay, so I've locked it here, and you can see we're at 70.41 millimeters, 7.42 millimeters. So if I wanted to switch this over to inches, you click the button up here, and it toggles inches, so 2.720 inches, or if you need that in fractions, 2 99/128ths. So let's say we wanted to stretch it out slightly. If I can do that. I don't want to loosen it up too much, but let's get a better fraction than 99/128ths. It does go down to 120, 25 30 So now if I measure the thickness, it should be roughly half of that. Let's put it back on millimeters. So remember, we had 70 millimeters. There you go. It's like literally half. A little over 35 millimeters. 13.885 inches. And 1 25/64 inches if you need it in fractions. Okay? Let's measure something else. So I'm now going to go over kind of the science behind how they numbered the 18650 batteries and why that is the case. These first 2 digits is the diameter of the battery in millimeters, and the 650 is the battery height in millimeters times 10. So they'll always end with a 0. So now if we confirm that on the caliper, you got to remember that there is a coating around here where they have the stuff printed on the battery. They have all this stuff printed here, and so there is a label that goes around the battery, so it's not going to be exactly 18 millimeters, but it should be really close. So let's clamp around the battery, and there you go, 18.40 millimeters. That's millimeters, so that's pretty close. And that would mean 0.7245 inches, so 0.72 inches, or 93 1/28. Yeah. And if we measure the, if we measure the length this way, it should be right, again, because of labels and because it's not a flat top battery. Well, it is mostly, but it's not a complete flat top battery. It's gonna not be exact. Oh wait, let's get to the actual flat top. We had it at 67 millimeters there. So it's a little bit over, but that's alright. So now we are going to measure the size of this screw that came from my box fan. So it is, oh, let's make sure it's straight, there we go. 11, let me lock it. Okay, 11 point, just came out. There, 11.77 millimeters, or 0.46 inches, or what is with the 1/28? 59 1/28. That is as low as it goes, is the 1/28. So this is that screwdriver I reviewed back on episode 4, and it came with 2 screw sizes. Let's measure the actual size, the actual diameter of these. So they actually say it on there somewhere. It says 3, oh man, you can't even read that. I think that says 3/16. So let's see if it truly is 3/16 inches. It definitely should be. So let's put it on the fractional stuff. 3/16 of an inch is whatever 3 divided by 16 is for decimals. So let's clamp around this part. There you go. Would you look at that? There, 3/16. So it's switching between 25 1/28 and 3/16. So just note that these screws probably don't go all the way to 1/28. So the next closest is the 3/16, which is just barely not on here. And here's the other bit that goes onto the end of it, and let's see what this one says. 1/4 inch. Phillips 1/4 inch. So let's see if it, again, truly is 1/4 inch. Spoiler alert, it should be. Let's see. 15/64. So 16/64 is a 1/4 inch. There we go. Wait. There. Should work. There. 1/4. But yeah, 1/4 inch. There we go. 1/4 inch. And there you go. Everything works. I know this is kind of an awkward angle, but this is the leg on my desk that was made. So let's take a look at the amount of inches. This is going to be kind of awkward to look at. I'll just read it to you. 0.74 or 3/4 inch. 3/4 of an inch. And the millimeters are at about 20. Now if I go this way, I'll just read this to you. As far as inches go, we're at 1.5, well, yeah, 1.528 inches. Kind of a weird fraction, 1 35/64. So I think it's supposed to be 1.5 inches, but this wood is kind of weirdly, like there's like a weird little split down here, so I think it's kind of messing it up. And so millimeters is at 39.04. So yeah, it seems like it's about 3/4 inch this way and 1.5 inches this way. There was a little bit of error there, but this wood is kind of weird, so yeah. I will now go over the pros and cons of this caliper. So the first thing, what do I like? Well, I like that it's very simple and it's a very basic caliper. If you know how to use a digital caliper, you know how to use this thing. I also like the case that it comes in. It's big enough to carry everything that you'd need, and it keeps the dust away and just overall looks pretty nice. Now, the fact that this is rated for 6 inches means that, yeah, you can go to 6 inches, but you can actually go a little more than 6 inches, so even if you have something that's exactly that, you should still be able to open the jaws of the caliper up enough to be able to clamp around it. It goes a little over 6 inches. I also think that this is something that everyone should have. Keep it in the same place that you keep your eraser, your pens, pencils, all that stuff, and your rulers. Keep your digital caliper by there too, because you never know when you'll need to measure something using this that your ruler cannot measure. So now let's go over the cons. So the first thing is true on many digital calipers, and probably most of them. The fact that the power on button is kind of useless, because you don't need to power it on, you can just open it up. But when you're putting this thing away in the case at the end, it's annoying because even if it just moves slightly, it'll turn on, and then you gotta reach through the plastic and power it off. And it's just annoying. I think to power it on, you should have to push the button and then do it. Opening the jaws of the caliper should not be turning it on. It just seems like it would waste battery doing it that way. Speaking of batteries, never, ever, 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 I repeat, ever, take that battery cover off. You will be frustrated for the next 3 hours trying to get that thing back on. It's impossible. Just note that it comes with the battery already installed. Now, with that being said, I definitely recommend everyone get something like this because you never know when you're going to need it. You're going to come across something and you'll be like, oh, I need the diameter of this thing. I can't measure that with a ruler. Oh. Well, you can measure it with this. So, you never know when it's going to come in handy, and so I just recommend everyone get one of these. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.